And now it's time for our weekly energy update with Dan McTeague, president of Canadians for Affordable Energy.
We're getting into the dog days of summer, as I mentioned last week, and weather seems to be going very well for Canadians. A lot of Canadians taking to the roads. The Americans have just finished their, American Independence Day long weekend, and demand is actually up and supply is down. I looked at the Energy Information Agency, U.S. Department of Energy, United States, and they suggested that gasoline inventories are down about 2 or 3% below what they are for this time of year. Diesel down almost 20% compared to what they should be at this time of year, and that explains why last week we talked about diesel prices going up. And in fact, if you listen to our podcasts or our news forum piece here, you would have known if you have diesel, you would have been better to fill up last week. But to those who didn't and don't think it's a big deal, well, you're paying for it now. The same applies, though, for oil. It's going up. It's shown a little bit of weakness. Now it's going back up again. And that's the result of inventories being down about 10% compared to this time last year. We also got indications this week of something not necessarily directly related to what's happening with gasoline prices, but for the past 10 years, we've been told how great the American, shale revolution was. And the fact that shale oil produces great gasoline, but can't produce diesel. That's why they need heavy oil from Canada and a lot of it. Otherwise, they don't run their mining sector. They don't run their forestry sector. They can't run their agriculture sector. They can't run their military. They can't run their jets. They can't run their locomotives. You get what I mean? The industrial complex in the United States very much hinges on Canadian heavy oil because they can't produce it themselves, and they certainly can't get it from Venezuela or Mexico. But it indicates that there is going to be a decline from 13 million barrels a day, likely down as it weakens or as it declines or it peaks, call it sundowning, if you will, of that technology, maybe down to 11 million barrels in about a year. That means Canada has to come up with another 2 million barrels, like it or not. Now, of course, the current administration is very favorable to this, and we may actually get a pipeline built because the Canadian version of the Keystone XL was built right to the border. It's up to the Americans to actually reconstruct it, pick up the pieces that they sold off under Biden, foolishly, and reconnect that, because Americans do need Canadian oil, like it or not. Enough on that. Gasoline prices this week did in fact go up, as we mentioned here last week. Average is about 3 to 4 cents a liter. So we'll start from the West Coast, Vancouver, Victoria. Victoria has a funny situation. There should always be 5 cents cheaper than Vancouver because the taxes are 5 or 6 cents a liter less. But they've been holding at about $1.64, while the mainland's about $1.63, $1.64. That is to say, not the mainland, but Vancouver, which is currently in the 163 to 166 range. I don't see that changing much this week. Maybe up or down a penny or two, and I mean up and then down. Rest of British Columbia, so Kelowna, the interior, places like Kamloops and Prince George, all in the 160, 150, 140 range, and depends where you are. Prince George tends to be far more expensive than, say, Kelowna and Kamloops. But generally speaking, not much change there. What we have seen, though, in the neighboring Alberta is a gas war, gasoline war, yes. Cost gas stations about $1.25 to buy their fuel, but I saw places that were selling for as little as $1 a liter. That is insane. And if you are a gas station independent, you're out of business because you can't sell enough beef jerky or pop or coffee to make up the difference. And you can't make it up on diesel or gas or premium gasoline. So look for prices in Calgary and Edmonton to restore very quickly to the 128 to 129 range and stay there for the next couple of weeks. We have to look as well in Saskatchewan, where prices never change. This reminds me of the old Guess Who thing, running back to Saskatoon. And I think the leader, Burton Cummings, talks about, the place in Saskatchewan where nothing much ever happens. Well, that's the same thing for gasoline. And not to take away from those from Saskatchewan, because I'm from Manitoba. Manitoba hasn't seen much of a change either. It's in the 133, 134 range. Some places a little higher, some places a little lower. When you see a difference in a province, it's really the retail margin. That's all it is. Gasoline stations choosing to not have a retail margin, in which case they could be bankrupt or have a rich uncle or a generous bank, or up to 10 to 12 cents a liter. So that's really what makes up the difference between one city to another, between gas station and gas station, even in many times in the same city corner. Ontario remaining the same in the 135, 136 range. Quebec, because of the higher taxes, 160, 162. And Atlantic Canada, well, you can look to continue to pay a little bit more. Although you have to wait till Friday when the price dips, you still have to pay for it because in Atlantic Canada, They love to have their little security blanket so that they can have the government tell them what the price should be. Never seen something so bizarre. But I think if an alien were to come from outer space and look at this and say, what's wrong with the folks of Atlantic Canada, that they would want government to make decisions for them. Be as it may, calm week ahead. I'm not seeing much of a change. The Canadian dollar could start to weaken if the Trump tariffs do take place. If they don't take place and we see him back off as he traditionally does, as he used to do in my old days with gasoline prices, he tweets something, gets everybody all up in a lather, then nothing actually happens. Then this may turn out to be a big nothing, in which case the Canadian dollar will continue to remain